pretty messed up. I don't know. I really hope, like, really hope cancel culture ends
Wait,
soon.
lag.
Oh, did we? Did we? We are back, it looks like. I think we're back.
Like we're back.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool.
We're back, we're back. Yeah. Um, yeah. Cancel culture, it's just if we're responding in a Christian response, it just shouldn't exist. I think there's a proper way to go about it. People should take breaks. People should step away from what they're doing, whether it's creating content or making music or whatever it might be. If it doesn't match, then they should step away from it and then just come back once you've changed. Once you've shown that you've grown, then they should be given a chance to come back, right?
Yeah, I
Uh,
think so. And not only that, I feel like when the canceling, I would say, like it's happening, I feel like they should also have a chance to like a voice why something might have happened, why the other party who's trying to cancel them might have felt a certain way. Like
yeah.
it's really hard to just take one side of the story and decide another person's like entire
Yeah,
career.
like you felt that firsthand,
Yep.
which is pretty ridiculous. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, because I was mentioning before how like me right now, it's like cancel culture barely affects me because I said someone has to be of a certain status or level of status, societal status, to actually be affected. Like for you, you were actually like, if I remember, you're the coach, right? Essentially the coach
Yeah, I
or,
was
or
a team
manager of the team.
coordinator. Hmm.
Yeah, so like you have status, which is why it affected you in that way, right? Or someone
Yeah.
had a reason to affect you. But like
Hmm.
for me, I'm just a lowly like 2 viewer streamer, yo. I don't Nothing's gonna affect me at this point. Unless you were to attack like my actual job, for example. Then that would be kind of messed up. Uh but like at the end of the day, it's unfortunate that it only affects um that like the quote unquote popular people, I guess. Is a way to put it, but I don't want to say I don't want to say that it's only the case. I feel like cancel culture, it exists in every social scenario, right? Like when you say you hate someone, that's technically cancel culture, is it not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so because it can happen not only like publicly, it could be happen in any community or any type of friend group as well. Like you can just
Yeah,
stop being friends with someone, kick someone out of your friend like your group, and basically it's like, oh, what more friends do they have? Like you never know.
yeah. It's like that is technically also could be also grouped under cancel culture, but it's not
Mhm.
done that because it's like, oh, that's just your friend group thing. That group, that guy was being bad, whatever it is, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
uh, is it a Christian way to act? No, not exactly. But that's how like society runs, you know? It's kind of crazy when you take a step back and think about it. Cuz I've definitely kicked people out of groups or I've almost essentially burned bridges I don't usually burn bridges, but there are a couple bridges I burned because I just didn't want to deal with it. Yeah. So, it was it the most Christian thing to do? Absolutely not. Definitely wasn't. But it just goes to show how much we like thrive off of this emotion. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah. But Steven, for you, I mean, with I guess with cancel culture, right? And I guess going back to the topic of Christianity being not really being canceled, but
Yeah.
more so us having to take kind of like the weight of it. Do you have any like examples or things that you do within your conversations that you've kind of had to experience that yourself, where you've had to kind of take the weight and kind of show the other side and say we're not as bad as you think?
I mean, I don't think I specifically have anything that's like been kind of like, or yeah, there's no like specific examples that's been like really bad, but I would say like even small things that um I wouldn't say like I wouldn't say cancel culture wise, but or I guess it's sort of cancel culture, but for example, like for me personally, two things like, or I guess like a couple of small things, but um for me personally, like like when it comes to like drinking, right? Like I drink socially, right? And like I enjoy going to a party, like a small gathering or whatever, and just drinking there or like socially with friends, or
Mhm.
whatever, right? And
Yeah.
specifically to that, um, like I definitely have friends who see that example and they go like, "Hey, aren't you Christian? Why are you drinking so much? Or why are you doing all these specific things?" Right? Like even for like gaming, like in general, right? Like my parents are always like, "Why are you like wasting your time gaming instead of kind of like finding a job or whatever?" Like, and then they a lot of the times they often pull, well, not my parents, but like I know friends who pull like biblical kind of verses or whatever, to like passages or whatever, to back their argument up, right? Of like, you shouldn't be
Mhm.
doing these things. And yeah, that's something that I think happens to a lot of people as well. Um, in terms of kind of like how you do, or like what you do and how you act in specific ways that that might not seem Christian to other people. And I wouldn't say they try to cancel you, but like they like look down on you on it, right? Or like they're
Mhm.
like, "Oh, like I don't want to be friends with you because of specific things." Yeah. Or like, I guess sort of cancel. Like I've had friends who like cut ties um because they don't like how I like drink or like act specific ways.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So have you had similar situations as well?
Posture check.
For me,
Have a posture check.
posture check.
Everybody
Okay,
posture
okay,
So
check.
that first. Okay.
Everybody posture check.
it's myself.
For me, at my church specifically,
Mhm.
um, at first, well, it was also because I was moving out for college. So but part of another reason I kind of stopped. Actually, I stopped going to the church that I usually go to. It's because okay, so a little background story, I guess. I actually came to Canada around I think 8, almost 8, 9 years ago. I came here from Hong Kong.
Mhm.
So my mom have a couple friends that's also from Hong Kong that goes to this church. I don't want to name it, okay, because
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
about to say something bad about it, so I don't want to be like, oh,
Oh, it's fine. It's fine.
you know. um, so at first when I got there, I'm like, oh, it's just new people, like everything is new, like it's okay. But slowly as I'm there, it kind of felt like I think it might be because all of them like kind of grew up together as well. It kind of
Mm.
felt like a really close group that well, outsider like me, it's not welcome.
Yeah.
Oh, like very cliquey? Very
Yeah.
cliquey. Okay.
So to a point where I'm like, oh, okay, so like I don't feel welcomed to the community anymore. So I'm like, okay, like since I'm moving out for college as well, I just completely stopped going there.
Hmm.
So now that I moved home, I actually went there a couple times as well, and I noticed one of the girls that used to go there also stopped going, and I hung up with her recently. And she told me that there is like a lot of drama going on with like this other girl. There's a couple, like they started dating. Both of them goes to the same church since forever as well. I'm like, nobody sees a problem with it, right? Like, if anything, I'm happy that you're be able to find your significant other at church as well, because that's a beautiful thing.
Right.
Um, but it's to a point, I think like she has a little bit more of a different personality compared to the rest of the people. I feel like a lot of them always act like they're perfect, like they are like the perfect Christian, the perfect daughter, perfect student. While it's like for us, I graduated college and I'm still working at a bubble tea store. She graduated college.
Right.
It's more of like we're still getting work experiences. We're
Mm-hmm.
still trying to get,
Yeah.
go through life.
Hmm.
Um, but it's to a point where it's almost like because we are not on par with that perfectness, we're not as welcomed into
Mm,
the group.
right. Yeah.
And
Oh,
it's
that
like sometimes
sucks.
I think we have like a softball community as well, right? So when we have new people that are coming to play softball, just because like the girl is slightly nicer to the guys, the new guys, because they're like, oh, you're new here, right? So let's try to make this environment a little bit more welcoming to new people. And suddenly it became like, oh, she's trying to flirt with them. She's trying to like get together with people. It's like that's not really the case. You just kind of put word into her mouth, and then at that point it's like no one really wants to go come here anymore because of like how, first of all, how close the group is, and second, when you treat new people like this.
Yeah, that's actually something my church actually struggled with a lot too back in the
Yeah.
past. Like we didn't we were considered a very cliquey church, but not in like it wasn't meant to be a negative way. A lot of people perceived it as like when we went to like interchurch retreats and we have like a whole bunch of churches at this retreat, they're like, oh, it was actually hard to approach you guys because of how close you guys are. And a part of it's a good thing that we're also connected as a church, but at the same time, like you're saying, it's hard for newcomers to come and join the community because of that same reason, right? and
Hmm.
and it's pretty messed up that your friend had to go through, it's like your friend was trying to take the step forward and do something good to welcome people, and
Yeah.
just to get negative like feedback from that, like that's pretty messed up. So that's unfortunate. Have you two found another church to go to, or
We haven't, but like currently I'm just kind of doing like online. Like, well,
online
it's because
service?
of COVID, like a lot of services turned online as well, or it's available
Yeah.
online. So I just kind of
Yeah.
been doing that. Also save me
Hmm.
gas money.
I
Oh
know
my
gas
gosh.
prices are
We don't talk
Yeah,
about
we
gas.
don't talk about
We
that.
don't talk
Yeah, I
about
know.
gas, guys.
But yeah,
that's
like
true,
it's
yeah.
just really hard because sometimes like even like after church, some of us were like, oh, let's get lunch together. So
Hmm.
like we're after service, it was already like 1 p.m. And
Hmm.
somehow they can just get distracted, talk about other things, but we are still waiting on that one person to decide where to eat.
Oh yeah.
And in my opinion, like she is
Happens
also the
all the
person
time.
who is like starting all this drama. So it's like I got a little bit frustrated being
Where
there.
you just want to get out at that point. Yeah,
Yeah.
don't deal with it. That's fair. I'd want to get out of that situation too. I mean, everyone has to find a church that they connect well with and that helps them grow in their faith. So, I mean,
Mhm.
hopefully you're able to find a new church that's actually
Thank
supportive
you.
in your faith growth. Yeah. Dang. Yeah, like with churches and that whole situation with like being cliquey and not being open, it's like I feel Korean churches also fall under that too, because there's this whole a lot of Korean churches are immigrant churches, right? Where a lot
Mm.
Mhm.
of like a lot of them are founded from families coming here, pastors coming here, immigrating here, and setting it up. But then it's come to this point where there's this generation change now, where Canada isn't really accepting many more immigrants at this point, especially not in Toronto. They would love for you to go to Saskatchewan though, if you want to hit up, Regina, Saskatoon. Like they'd love you to go there, but in Toronto, Vancouver, they're not really accepting too many immigrants. Um, so as a result, immigrant churches, Korean immigrant churches, are also dying, and I'm sure that's also the case for many Chinese immigrant churches as well, where the older generation is getting smaller because they're getting older and natural age and stuff like that. Um, but now it's getting to a point where our generation is now, and I feel like a lot of these churches don't realize that. And I think there's a lot of things that the immigrant churches have missed because they focused on creating this community, like you were saying, like a very close knit community for themselves. That which is to evangelize to others. I feel like that's completely missing. And I think our generation is slowly doing that better. I think our generation right now is like, especially with modern or English ministries, a lot of them are doing discipleship groups, better Bible study sessions, quiet time sessions, and things like that. I think there's a little more sustenance for people and to kind of gain from rather than just being a cliquey, close knit group. So I think that's a really good change that I've been seeing. I don't know if you guys have seen the same.
Personally, I haven't,
Mm,
because, well, even like back in and me and one of my close friends, she's actually in Canada now, but uh the fellowship that I used to go to, when I went back there, it's almost like after whatever we're doing, we're split into small groups, right?
yeah.
And then everything they talked about in every single table was relationships.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I don't have anything against that. Again, good for
Mm.
you, right? But when
Yeah.
the entire environment, it's almost like, oh, if you don't have a boyfriend slash girlfriend, you can't be here.
Mm,
And in my opinion, some of the things that they're complaining about, it's also like not
very
really
surface
logical.
level.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's like, oh, my boyfriend's going somewhere with this girl, and I'm like, what are you gonna do about it? You just, I mean, just because someone's dating you doesn't mean that they cannot have like opposite gender friends.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
then,
I agree with
but
that.
but it's to a point where even the counselors are like, oh yeah, oh my gosh, I feel so sorry for you, and I'm like, huh? It's to a point where why am I even here? And my close friend, she's like, oh yeah, she stopped going to that fellowship. She found another
Mhm.
church when she was in Hong Kong because at this point, well, she felt like she was being canceled because she wasn't in a relationship.
Mm.
And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
communities, like it's to a point where I haven't like seen anyone like trying to step out of the bubble just to like accept people's differences, or even like accept people's like past or whatever they've done wrong. It's
Yeah.
just, oh, this happened and we don't welcome them anymore, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
it's
Like
sad to see them in churches too.
it gets to a point where like when you drive people out of church and then they never come back, like you've done something so bad at that point. And the thing is they don't realize that they do it. And it's mind-boggling to me, like what you're saying and what, like, let's say your friend went through. What if your friend didn't find another church? That group of that fellowship wouldn't even know that, you know what I mean, and they wouldn't
Yeah.
care about it. And that's so bad. So like what would you guys say would be, like, let's say, just hypothetically, it's great that your friend found another church in Hong Kong, which is great. But let's say your friend didn't find a church. Let's take that hypothetical situation. Like, you know someone who got who essentially got hurt by the church. How would you help them to question? But like, what do you think would be a good approach to that?
Mm, it's actually like, in my opinion, it's pretty hard because,
Yeah.
well, from personal experience, I don't even want to go to the church that I usually attend right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel like it does take a lot of change for, like, in the community to happen in order to bring people back. Like, you can't, in my opinion, you cannot keep causing drama or kicking people out by what making, well, yeah, it's essentially kicking people out by, first of all, making them feel unwelcomed, and second, just like maybe putting something in their mouth, make them look like a bad person. Um, I feel like this is like an effort that the entire community has to go through to figure
Mm-hmm.
out, oh, why are these people not coming back? Did they do something, or is it just like, because when it's one person, you can be like, oh, maybe they lose interest, they lose faith. When it's like living for like the same reason that they don't feel welcome, and I feel like it does take the entire community to talk about it and reflect. But
Yeah, I think it
I
also
do.
does damage the fact that you
Mhm.
don't reach out. You know what I mean? Sorry to cut you off. Just
Yeah,
adding
yeah,
in,
no
like,
worries.
it's like, if the person, like you're saying, if one person leaves or two, three people leave, to have no one reach out to you and try to bring you back also does so much damage, right?
Mm.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. Well,
Because
sorry, continue your thought. Yeah.
yeah, other than the pastor itself, from like himself from my church, no one else have ever shoot me a text or whatever and being like, oh, we haven't seen you in a while. Like, how are you doing? It? Nobody has done that.
Yeah, that sucks.
Like, obviously, I was gonna say, like, it does take us to also reach out to them, being like, hey, this and that happened. That's why I don't feel welcome. But it's also like, are they willing to listen to us? Right.
Mm,
Yeah, I think both sides needs to work on it. And it's like a two-sided thing where I think like for the person leaving, or like left or whatever, they have to kind of um like not be afraid to speak up about the issue, and like speak up to the community of like why they felt like yeah, like they don't have to do it like right away, right? Or like at least find someone that you trust in that community to have that conversation, or like even if someone like not in that community to have that conversation of like, oh, like I left because specific things like were going well, and it's also the responsibility of like the pastor slash pastoral team or the church itself, like the community itself, to have
mhm,
to kind of understand and to have or at least like not maybe not all the members, but at least having like a team, um like a pastoral team, or even to kind of understand the and to know the like mental health of their church, of all the like members, right? Of
mhm.
like just being able to even check in with members and being like, hey, like I haven't seen you in a while, what's going on, kind of thing, right?
You bring up a good
Mm.
point on mental health because, like, I see Emmy's here. Hi, Emmy. Mentioning, could it also be because HK people are kind of reserved too? And we talked about that. We mentioned that earlier. We mentioned about like East Asian communities. A lot of our communities in the East Asian in culture is that you don't say anything directly to the person. You
Yeah.
always it's you put up a front and then you talk trash behind their back, and it's such a
Mhm.
it's such a toxic mentality, and it happens everywhere, whether it's within friend groups, families, within churches, like it's anywhere. That culture kind of exists, but it's like that is Christian values and how Christians should be. If Jesus didn't do that, so why are we doing that, right? So you can say, "Oh, it's our culture. We do that because of culture." It's like, but as a Christian, then you should understand that you should throw that you not throw that culture away, but you should understand that that part of your culture is not Christ-like,
Yeah.
right? And you have to step away from that, and so it becomes this issue that Priscilla was stating earlier, where if you don't break away from it, it does so much more damage than good. The only good is within the community itself, and you have all this damage to it does all this damage to everyone else around it. And then the church doesn't grow. The church shrinks and inevitably will die. Right? If the church doesn't grow, then your church will die, and it's just a matter of time. And that's what I was mentioning earlier, that with immigrant churches, they are slowly dying over time because they don't reach out for exactly the same reason that Priscilla was saying.
Yeah.
Mhm. And like back to the Hong Kong people, are kind
Mhm.
of reserved. Like I told a lot of times, like even in school, in church, when I was in Hong Kong, that I struggled a lot because of people are never upfront like with you.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Like there's a lot of things that goes behind your back, and somehow you just hear it from like other people, and the like whatever they talked about, it's so twisted because it's went through
Yeah.
so many people. When it comes back to you, it's like that wasn't not that never happened because it's a complete different
Yeah.
story.
I feel like Asians just
Um,
like to gossip. In
I think
general.
so. And not only that, it's like if you have a problem with someone,
Yeah.
especially in a relationship in a community,
Yeah.
um, s- you shouldn't like you shouldn't just go behind their backs. You should always, I think, you should just let them know it's
Yeah.
something that you can work around.
Yeah. Emmy saying she completely
Yeah, I
understands and
can.
saying
Yeah,
she's from
me
Hong Kong.
too. Like I struggled. That's to be honest, that is one of the reasons why I left Hong Kong because to a point where the gossip. I went to an all female high school when I was in Hong Kong, and it's to a point where I cannot handle all of like it's basically like bullying.
Mm.
Like, cause you never know what's going on. All of a sudden, like everyone, it's talking something about you, and suddenly you don't have friends anymore. At
Yeah.
that point,
Yeah.
you're like being canceled because
Yikes.
I think it's essentially the same thing because
Yeah.
it's like every time when there's like a group project, whatever, you're always the person who gets left alone, and the teacher have to force you into some groups. And then anyone who texts you will be like, "Oh, we have to be with that person." Like, no, you don't. You can just talk to each other
Oof.
and maybe figure out what person they actually is instead of listening to all of the
Yeah.
gossips that probably not true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
I feel like
that's
yeah,
yeah. That's
that
for you're literally mirroring Korea too. Korea's the exact same way.
yeah.
I hate that. That's the part of Korean culture I hate, especially with like the whole age difference thing. Like, oh, I'm born in the same year as you, but my month is earlier than yours, so you need to respect me. I'm like, get out of here! I don't care. Who do you think you are? I don't need to give you
I think
respect.
in Korea there's different because in your language it's like integrated, right? You have to speak in a different way when it's to like your seniors.
Right. Yes, and that part is okay, but it's the whole mention of like spiraling back. It's the whole like if you're power hungry, you abuse that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's true.
Yeah.
It's like I had a situation. So this was when I was in Korea. When I went to visit Korea, this was like I think after at the end of first year university. Um, Me and my mom were heading back home. We were on the subway. We're going back to the countryside because we were staying at my grandma's place, and there were these two girls. There was this one white girl and one Korean girl, and they were sitting in the subway, pretty much like maybe like 2 seats away from us on the other side, and on one station as we're going by, this old drunk man comes in. He looks like he's like what 60 something, and he's clearly drunk. He smells drunk, and then he tries to talk to these Asian girls. Like he tries to talk these this white girl and this Asian girl, and they tries to talk him up and trying to be like, I know English too, like all this kind of stuff, and like he's getting really close, and then the white girl was eating like the silkgang, the shrimp chips, and he was like reaching in and like eating it too, like, without asking.
Right.
It was just this messed up situation where this old man is like, oh blah blah, and then so my mom's like telling me, it's like, hey, you should go do something. And I'm like, I want to wait and see what happens for now on. And she's like, no, go and do something. So she kicked me and she made me go, and so I had to force myself into this situation between these old men and these girls and try to like pretty much iron arm steel arm my way in and push him away and pretty much use my body as a wall for these girls, right? And I was trying to keep up, like, because I knew they spoke English, they were clearly not from Korea, and I tried to
Mhm.
talk to them and trying to calm them down and so on and so forth, right? And then on the side, all this old man was screaming at me in my ear during this whole period as I'm trying to calm him down in Korean was, "Who do you think you are? I'm older than you. Blah blah blah." We were getting along. Blah blah blah. And then this is the iconic the Korean like drunk adult male adult is I was the captain of this battalion in the army, blah blah blah, because
Oof.
it's mandatory army service, and
Yeah.
they show it as like a badge of like status, and I'm like, shut up. I'm just so like, these girls are clearly uncomfortable, right? And just because of your age and because you've been to the army, like it makes it sound like you can do anything you want. It's like you can't. There's
Mm.
there's standards, right? And so obviously I wasn't gonna hit him, but I'm like I ignored everything he was saying. I was trying to strong arm him. And bless my mom, she called him over, and I was like, oh my gosh, mom, what the heck are you doing? Like, don't call him. And essentially, she calls him over, and he goes sit beside my mom. And then everything he just said to me, he says straight to my mom. Like, how could your
Oof.
son be so disrespectful? Do you know where I'm from? I'm from. And then he goes through the whole battalion thing again, and my mom was able to calm him down, and then they got off the subway after a couple stops, and the girls were like, oh, thanks for helping us out, whatever, no big deal.
Yeah.
And then she left, and then the old man got off. But it's like, but that's the nature of that toxic age thing. It's just because you're older doesn't mean I have to respect you if you're disrespectful to someone else, right? That's that's Western culture. Like, if
Yeah.
you disrespect me, then I don't have to respect you anymore. Well, for Korea, it's like, just because you're older, you get power hungry people that force you to respect them, or else, let's say I was an employee, right? Let's say I was an employee and he was one of the seniors at my company, I would have been canceled. I would have been screwed. Just like Priscilla was saying, I would have been completely kicked out and like maybe fired from work, right? And there was nothing I could do about it. And that's the part of Korean culture that I dislike about it. And it's just people take it, and people who want to feel power, want to feel strength, right? They they twist it in every single way they can just to get their agenda forward, and
Yeah.
it's just so bad. Yeah. So, if old man, if you're out there and you're somehow listening to this podcast and you have no idea what I'm saying because you're Korean, hopefully you're not drinking as much.
Oh.
Be a better person, foreigners. My goodness, crazy, crazy people out there.
I
There's
mean,
no
I
liquid
think
common
I think
sense.
the Western culture like happens as well in terms
Oh,
of not necessarily
yep.
like status or like older in terms of respect, but I think also like status wise, like I think a lot of like people who have higher status, um, whether they're like celebrities or just like they're kind of like better off,
Mhm.
they often have more, or like if they're like power hungry, right? They often abuse their power to get away with specific things that like that someone who didn't have as much power or like wasn't as famous wouldn't be able to get it.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's just it, it comes to a point where I guess just kind of trying to close it off. I guess
Yeah.
with like with cancel culture and how I think all of us are in the boat where none of us want to partake in it because we believe that every person can change and groups can change, and there may be parts of stories that we don't know about. um but I guess for I guess individually we can kind of just share, even though we may have said it earlier, like as Christians, I guess within our friend groups, what are ways that you have or will do when these situations come up? Like, how do you act, especially with friend groups that are kind of hard? It's kind of hard to kind of speak out,
Yeah.
like I said, at time. Like, if you do see it happening within your friend group, how do you think you would deal with it in a Christian way?
I think it's important to like basically talk to everyone just to see what's actually going on, like
Mm.
depend like
Mhm.
on a topic of why this one person is being canceled, and just go from there. Like maybe it could be a miscommunication with someone. It could be maybe someone just need to apologize to the other person. Like I feel like a lot of this can be de-escalated instead of like getting kicked out of a community or a friend group.
Mhm. Mhm. When
Yeah,
do you think it's like when do you think it's like too much, or like when would you agree? What would be like a limit where you agree with kind of removing someone?
I think if they're like actually doing something bad, like on purpose,
Mm.
if they're purposely actually trying to like offend a person, purposely trying to disrespect, or even might be coming down to something legal, right? Maybe I think we will have to like really like when it comes to illegal stuff, obviously you might have to hand it over to authority. But
Mhm.
when someone is like really trying to do something on purpose just to disrespect, piss someone off, um, at that point, I think I wouldn't say like cancel them completely, or more like talking to them and giving them time to think and reflect why something they did was wrong.
Right. And then if they don't get it over time, then it's like, okay, then you
Mm,
until you change that, then we can't have you here because it's a toxic
yeah.
kind of behavior. Yeah, makes sense. Right, and so what about you, Steven?
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think there are definitely ways where you can um I think like as Priscilla said, one of the most important things is like communication, right? Like between the two sides of what the actual issue is, and um kind of understanding like both sides of why like somebody wants to cancel somebody, and like what the both sides of the story is, and to really be able to, yeah, to understand where both sides are coming from, so that you're able to maybe talk it out and come to like a conclusion, or come to like a yeah, like a conclusion of how you want to go about dealing with this. And
Mm.
like I would say that like like leaving, like, or for like specifically for examples of like the church, I guess, like leaving the church is not always necessarily a bad thing, and it's not always in a situation where like you're being canceled, and like you're leaving on a bad note, right? And
Mhm.
like I think communication is one of the most important thing. And if, let's say, both sides understand like where the other side is coming from, and sometimes it's just like the conclusion is that like it's better off for the person to like leave the church and find a new community. Then in that case, it's like, yeah, like it's not always a bad thing to like find a new community in that case. Um, but I would say if, yeah, like if, like as you guys said, like if one side is kind of like purposely hurting, like purposely acting or hurting towards doing something like purposefully, or not listening in general, like they understand what's wrong but they're not doing anything to kind of resolve or to change, then I think, yeah, in that case you have to kind of like, oh, like you're kind of hurting this whole community by doing this, and can't have you here.
Hmm. Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. And with that, I mean, we've been talking for like a pretty long time already. It's been like what? It's been an hour, almost an hour since Priscilla joined too. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good place to end. A pretty good place to end there. I mean, we talked about a lot about cancel culture. We talked about how we as Christians should act upon it, and I think we all agree Christianity is not being canceled, but it does. People, certain sections or things, people, groups are being canceled because of their views or their actions, and it sadly it is upon us to show the world that Christianity is not like that, and they're the right way, I guess, to represent Christianity is we got to do it through God and through ourselves. So yeah, that's pretty much it for today's podcast. For those who are watching, if you have any suggestions, questions, comments, things like that, you can leave it on our Discord, !Discord in the chat. You should, and you should get the link to join our Discord for Lightly Salted. So if you want to join us there, please feel free to join us. And if you have suggestions on the next podcast stuff, our topic, please let us know. And we essentially run these now on usually the last Monday of every month, but it should be sometime somewhere during the last
Yeah,
week, depending on our
usually the last
schedules.
week of,
Yeah, so last week of every month, and so keep an eye out for that. And yeah, I mean, I guess each of us can plug in our stuff. If you want to find me, you
yeah,
can go
yeah.
find me at twitch.tv/teachertal, and Priscilla for yourself.
I think it's Excumi underscore, I believe. I don't I don't really remember my Twitch handle.
Sure, yeah,
I think so. Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
pretty
it's
sure it is.
Excumi
Yeah,
underscore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then you guys know Steven for yourself.
yeah, well, it's on the
Yeah,
screen, I think.
yeah, yeah. I haven't streamed for a while, but hopefully I get back into it soon. I'm probably gonna be a very sporadic streamer at this point because streaming
Yeah, me
every day
too.
is
What do
so
you
hard.
mean? I want to see that Lost Ark stream every.
Yeah, maybe when I grind PvP. Maybe when I grind PvP on my stream.
I
PvP is
work
fun.
until like 11:30 every night, so it's you'll
Oh,
find me at
you're
1 a.m.
tired.
You should just stream
Yeah,
from
you must be
work. Are you
tired.
allowed to stream from work?
I don't think so, actually.
You would have to get permission for like everything, no?
Yeah, but I've
Yeah.
seen like, haven't you ever seen like live like TikToks, like people like working at bubble tea shops or like working at like restaurants and they're like streaming live on TikTok, and I'm like, you're
I think
working.
so.
Are you like allowed to be
Guy
doing
at Chow
this?
Time doing yeah.
Isn't it just
Yeah, I've
more
seen a guy
promotion
at
for
Chow
them?
Time like
Right?
making
Yeah,
TikToks.
yeah. I feel like it's just
Yeah,
more
I think so,
promotion for
but like
them. So
apparently
like,
head office like found it.
oh,
Apparently head office
not
found like
okay.
his TikTok and then like his pay got cut or something. So I'm like,
Mm.
Ooh.
whoa.
His pay got cut? Oh jeez.
Yikes.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna risk it.
All right, guys, don't make TikToks at work. That's the.
I mean, I feel like yeah, if you're gonna do it, make sure everyone in your job knows about
Yeah.
it and you have full permission to do it. Otherwise, don't do it, right? be be smart be smart about social media, everybody. Be smart about social media. But yeah, that's it from us. We'll see you next month at the last week. And yeah,
Yes.
peace out everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Guys.
Peace.
Bye.